It's summer 2021 and the Tokyo Olympics are just underway. The USA Olympic gymnastics team is expected to dominate, with five-time Olympic medalist Simone Biles leading the way. Then, something unthinkable happens. Simone pulls out of the competition. One of the most dominant gymnasts of all time and current reigning Olympic champion decides that she cannot compete. The reason for this was due to Simone's mental health. She was getting lost in her skills, and because of the high risk of injury, she decided what was best for her and her team was to pull out and focus just on her health. This is unprecedented in the sport of gymnastics. Gymnasts are perceived as being one of the most mentally and physically tough athletes, and yet the number one gymnast of all time was struggling. The psychological aspect of gymnastics is not something many people consider when thinking about the sport. However, it is one of the most, if not the most, important aspects of the sport. Many factors come into play into the mental state of a gymnast. Factors such as the environment in which the gymnast trains, the interpersonal relationships they develop in the gym, and the fear associated with the sport. Therefore, the purpose of this study is to examine how these factors, the environment, interpersonal relationships, and fear, all affect a psychological state of American female collegiate gymnasts and how these factors negatively or positively influence the athlete. So first, we're going to take a look at the environment. So an environment plays a critical role in the development of an athlete. A healthy environment will foster positive growth, while a toxic environment can hinder performance. Gymnastics, sadly, has a history of toxic environments. This goes all the way back to the 1970s, which is really where gymnastics started to get its kind of thing. So in the 70s, all the current stars of gymnastics were coming from Eastern Bloc countries of the Soviet Union. And in this, the coaches in the Eastern Bloc could do pretty much whatever they wanted and enact whatever punishments they saw fit. Some of the abuse that was seen at the time and is still seen in some gyms today is training and competing on injuries, weight control, and corporal punishment. Two of the most decorated and honored coaches in the history of gymnastics are Bella and Marta Caroli. The Carolis moved to America in the 1970s and established a facility in Texas where they decided to train the American national team. They created many of the stars we've heard about in the sport. Nadia Comaneci, who was the first woman to ever score a perfect 10, to Mary Lee Retton, to even Simone Biles. They, in this facility, established an environment that was incredibly toxic for the girls. The Wi-Fi at the facility was horrible, and the girls most likely could not talk to their parents at all. The food was restricted, and the girls were constantly hungry, and the ginormous amount of pressure that was put on the girls from these Carolis created a very stressful environment. In fact, in this facility, this is where the national team doctor, Larry Nassar, was able to sexually abuse more than 500 girls between the years 1992 to 2015. Gymnasts such as Aly Raisman and Michaela Maroney are still dealing with the lasting trauma from this facility. However, the opposite can be true. In a healthy environment, gymnasts can flourish. In these type of environments, a competitive yet supportive atmosphere helps predispose a gymnast to the healthy type of stress, which allows them to develop problem-solving skills, initiative, and the ability to respond to errors. Gymnasts in these type of environments say that it helps boost their mood, dissipate their anger, and provide a way to escape stress. It allows them to challenge them and learn in a space where they can be afraid, where they aren't afraid to fail, sorry. So in these environments, they have a safety net in knowing that they can learn and fail and be okay. So while a healthy environment is great for an athlete and can lead to great success, a toxic environment can increase anxiety and depression in an athlete and even make them want to drop out of the sport. So next is interpersonal relationships. So many interpersonal relationships form as a result of being in athletics, one of the most important being between athlete and coach. So a supportive coach can help grow an athlete and make them incredibly successful, while an abusive coach can leave their athlete stagnant and unsuccessful. In a case study done on a gymnast with trichotillomania, which is the act of repeatedly pulling one's hair out to relieve stress, the researchers found that The relationship between gymnastics coach and gymnast was somewhat like master and slave. Coaches will push their athletes to the extreme in order to achieve perfection, whether this be at the cost of their mental health or not. Author Michael Burke was quoted as saying, "Coaches often view their athletes as their possessions. They may enact a number of restrictions on their charges. This creates an uneven power dynamic between athlete and coach, which can lead to abuse. A gymnast spends so much time with their coach that they develop a very close relationship with them. They often look up to these coaches as a sort of role model, and that can lead to a fear of disappointing them, which again can create an opportunity for a coach to abuse them. Alternatively, good coaching can do just the opposite. A development of trust between coach and athlete provides a sense of security for them. They know the coach is doing what is best for them and pushing them to achieve their goals. One gymnast was quoted as saying, "Well, they think I can do it, so I think I can do it." A gymnast who knows that they can confide in their coach of their problems inside and outside of the gym develop healthy interpersonal relationships with adults other than just their parents in their lives. This impact of interpersonal relationships in the gym plays a large role in their mental health, leading to better social and emotional development. So while negative and toxic coaches can lead to maybe an increased dropout rate, a supportive coach can help keep a gymnast in the gym. An example of this is current Olympic all-around champion Sunisa Lee and her coach Jess Graba, and Riley McCusker and her former coach Maggie Haney. So Lee and Graba have a great relationship built on trust, support. They work together really well. And Suni has always been very adamant that Graba has helped her immensely and that they have a great and healthy relationship, which shows in that she was able to win an Olympic gold medal. The same cannot really be said for McCusker and Haney. Haney is actually undergoing a lawsuit right now from McCusker for verbal and emotional abuse while in the gym. In McCusker's testimony, she claimed that Haney made her train on injuries and compete on injuries. And if you look throughout Riley's career, it was riddled with injuries. She has great, great potential, but she could never quite make the deadlines because she was always injured, which led her to be kept off the Olympic team. And Riley's testimony coincides with another one of Haney's athletes, 2016 Olympic gold medalist, Lori Hernandez. Lori Hernandez also said that Haney was verbally abusive to her in the gym and made her want to quit the sport as a whole. So this instance just shows that a supportive coach can lead to great success and great future endeavors, like with Suni, while an abusive coach can potentially lead to an athlete quitting the sport that they work so hard for. So finally, we're going to talk about fear. So fear is described as an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous and likely to cause them pain or be a threat. So according to Chase and others, some of the top fears in gymnasts are difficulty from returning from an injury, fear of a serious injury, and fear of failure. So because of the high degree of risk in gymnastic skills, injuries often occur. This fear of these injuries can manifest in negative ways and put them at a higher risk of getting hurt. It's called an ironic mental process, where a gymnast thinks of one thing that's like, and then they'll end up doing it. They say, "I will not do this," and they'll end up doing it. So that in their heads increases anxiety of fear of injury. Fear of returning from injury is just as bad, if not more common. Being left out of the sport and losing confidence in their abilities due to lack of participation increases their fear of returning, their fear of getting re-injured after just coming through this injury. Though taking the time off helps heal their bodies, their minds kind of exacerbate the fear of getting hurt again. A unique fear in the sport of gymnastics is something called loss of move syndrome, or LMS. So LMS is a psychological condition in which an athlete loses awareness of their body or their technique during a skill. So a skill that was once automatic to them becomes very, very hard for them to perform. So this is actually what happened to Simone in Tokyo. So she called it the twisties. So this is Simone at the training facility in Tokyo doing her bar dismount. And in this video, you can see she gets lost in the air. She doesn't know where she is, and she ends up landing on her back. She loses all sense of air awareness. So not a lot of research has been done as to why this happens, but it is incredibly common in the sport. So it is something that needs more research to help hopefully know how to treat athletes with this disorder in the future. So all of these fears combine show that they play a very big role in the mental health of a gymnast. And there's lots of research that still needs to be done as to how we can help these athletes and hopefully keep them in the sport and be less afraid. So to finish up, I just wanted to say that gymnastics is a very intense sport. It has a lot of highs, but it has a lot of lows as well. So examining how these different factors influence a gymnast can be very important to help keep these gymnasts safe and protected. So having a supportive coach and a healthy environment can be incredibly influential in keeping the athlete in the sport, while having an abusive coach or a toxic environment can lead to increase of risk of mental duress. So taking all these factors into account, it can be said that a multitude of things can influence a gymnast's psychological state. More research needs to be done on problems such as LMS and fears associated with gymnastics, but currently there's a lot of research going in a good direction, but there always needs to be more. Some limitations that I found is that all of my sources were kind of all over the place. So many different countries, many different age ranges, youth, teen, maybe retired. So no consistent age range, no consistent place. So that's why for my research, I want to focus on specifically collegiate-aged American female gymnasts. So I want to use the SUU gymnastics team to do just that. I'm their manager, so I have easy access to them and talk to them and help do research with them. So my goal is to seek to answer what we can do to help these gymnasts so they don't leave the sport with lasting trauma. And hopefully the information that provides in the sources and the information that I find will help do so. And yes, thank you. These are the sources. Thanks.